Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Soulful Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Alitzel, and I am with Leo Babauta. I'm so excited to have him here. I met him a couple of years ago online. I was reading his blog, Zen Habits, and it was just so inspiring. I kept on following him. I also associate him a lot with minimalism, with
Mm,
simplicity, Zen living, slow living. And recently, I think recently you launched your podcast a couple
that's
of
right.
months ago.
Last
Yes,
year. Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
And I love the concept of the love for creation, which is the
Mm,
latest season of Leo's podcast. So I'm really, really excited to have him here. Leo is an entrepreneur, author. He writes the Zen Habits blog since 2007, and he also hosts retreats and hosts a podcast. So thank you, Leo, for taking the time.
Oh, it's an honor. Glad to get into this conversation with you.
Yeah, cool. Um, I want to start with the love for creation
Okay.
and going back in time when you got started writing. Do you think that the love for creating was the driver for starting your blog, or how did it start?
Mm,
Was it like, did you have like a strategy like this will be a business, or it was just like you wanted to take something out of your chest, your ideas? How was that
sure,
creative?
sure. Yeah, I definitely wanted to create something. I think I was in a place of consuming more, like, online stuff, reading, but I wanted to put something out there, which is a really like scary and vulnerable thing, as you know, as anyone who's putting their work out into the world knows. It's scary. And so I know I resisted it for a long time, even though
Mhm.
I wanted to. But the finally what got me over that barrier was that I had been going through a lot of changes in my life, and I wanted to share about that and have a conversation with people so that I could learn from people, but also help people who are going through similar struggles. So in 2005 was when I started those changes after failing to make changes for many years. Um, I quit smoking, and then from that I started running and exercising, eating healthier, getting out of debt, decluttering my life, changing all my habits, waking up earlier. I started not procrastinating. I ran a marathon. I did all these
Wow.
different things that were like amazing. And so by the end of 2006, I had done all of that, and I'm like, I wasn't done. I still had much more that I was
Mhm.
still in progress, but I had done so much, and I was like, I need to put this out there. So I started the Zen
Mhm.
Habits blog. I was meditating, starting to meditate as well, and digging into Zen. And so I wanted to talk about Zen and habits and productivity and changing your life. And so that's what I did, and definitely had no idea that it would be a business. I just wanted to share.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to put it out there and
Mhm.
hear from other people who are doing similar things. So I got a lot of commenters, not right away, but after a couple of months, I got people commenting, like here, their ideas and things that they were getting out of it. And so it was
Mhm.
really cool just to be in conversation with people as opposed to just
Mhm.
putting it out there and then not talking to anybody. It was
Mhm.
putting it out there and letting that be the start of a conversation. And
Mhm.
I learned so much that first year and even beyond. Every year I'm still learning from people. But I learn also from my own creation. Putting stuff out there requires me to reflect
Mhm.
and learn something and still be in the process of learning even after all of these years. It's not
Mhm.
like I was done then and now I'm just talking about it. It's more like I'm talking about the process that I'm still in of
Mhm.
continual growth. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a little bit about the love of creation that started the blog.
Mm. 17
Yeah.
years. I was trying to make
Yeah.
the maths. It's
Something, yeah, that's
crazy.
right. 17 years. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's really crazy because now I see some influencers and they want to go viral in one clip, like in a couple of days. And it's like, wow, all these years writing. And I think I want you to share more with us, but I see related with the Zen Buddhism or Zen habits
Mm,
in a way of like non attachment to results, of like, I'm loving the process and who
that's
I'm
right.
becoming through writing. Of course, there will be results, but how do you balance these? Like
Mm.
or when you started, you were just like, oh, I'm an artist. I just do it for the love of art, and then you got started with the results. How do you balance these two parts? I
That's a really
think.
good question. Yeah. Okay. So I actually was attached in the beginning. So
Okay.
I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I wanted to create stuff. And then at some point, maybe a couple of months into it, I started like, ooh, maybe I can actually make a living from this and I can quit
Mm-hmm.
my job. And so
Mm-hmm.
then I started becoming attached. That idea that I could quit and I didn't know how to do it. So I had to try and gain readership. And I did it actually. After the first year, I had like 26,000 subscribers and
Wow.
then, 70,000 the next year. So it grew, but there in the very beginning, I was very attached. I was trying to figure out how to go viral. The version of that in 2007 was very different than now, but it was the same kind of idea. It was like I really wanted to grow as quickly as possible, and so I tried a lot of things from that place of attachment, and
Mm-hmm.
some of it worked, and so I learned a lot about that. But I think what I also learned was it didn't ever make me happy, and if you have that attachment and you get some success, then you're still attached. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And so I had to keep going after that next thing, and it's just it can drive you crazy.
Yeah.
And so I had to recognize and humble myself and realize I was attached, and
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't have to, but I wanted to let that go because I don't think it was healthy for me. It wasn't where I wanted to come from when I created,
Mm-hmm.
of like, I want to get something out of this. It was more, I wanted to give and put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I experimented for a while with what would it be like to let go of that. And that was a phase where I was letting go of goals, letting go of attachment, letting go
Mm-hmm.
of caring about whatever happened, the
Yeah.
results. So I did that for a while, and I think that was really good for me. I
Mm-hmm.
deepened into it. I wrote about it, but at some point, this was maybe 5 years after that, I realized that that was a good thing, like letting go of
Mm-hmm.
attachment, but
Mm-hmm.
there was a limit to the impact that I could create in the world. I wanted to actually help people, and if I have no goals,
Mm-hmm.
that's non-attachment is a really great thing, but with no goals, no shooting for something big, I I can just lay on the beach all day and be happy, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
great. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sitting on a mountain and not impacting anybody is a beautiful thing. You can be
Mm-hmm.
content there,
Yeah.
but there's a limit to how much impact I'm going to have sitting on a mountain not actually talking to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I decided I wanted to do was work with having a vision and a goal and something I'm moving towards, but
Mm-hmm.
doing that with commitment and
Mm-hmm.
not attachment. No
Wow.
attachment, but commitment. And so that's
Okay.
actually where I've been practicing for the last, I don't know, 5, 7 years. Is what does it look like to show up in the world fully committed and devoted to what you care about, the impact you want to have, but without the attachment that I had before?
Yeah.
It's really hard. Yeah. So
It's really hard. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Thanks for
So
asking.
beautiful. Yeah. And how does it look like on your daily life? Is it like,
Mm,
okay, my commitment today is to write whatever words. I don't know if it will impact 2,000 people or
right.
10,000 or the metrics, or for example, with the podcast, no? Like, well, it can go like bigger, but not. But my commitment is done. Like, check, I recorded my podcast and that was my commitment with myself. Or how does it look like?
Yeah, so so yes, that's one way is like I'm committed to showing up and creating. I'm going to write a blog, I'm going to write an email, I'm going to write a podcast, make a video for YouTube. So that's a commitment to show up and do something. And I think that's something you can do is like then let go of attachment there of like how it goes after you put it out. But
Mm-hmm.
what I've been working with, so I think that's a great way to work with commitment without attachment. But the
Mm-hmm.
way that I've been working is what if I am also committed to the result? So, like, for example, if
Okay.
I wanted to help 1 million people, which
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
actually the kind of goal that I work with, I want to help 1 million
Mm-hmm.
people. that is for me, that's inspiring. Like that's something that I care about. It's not just like I want to create it and put it out and who cares what it does.
Mhm,
What if
mhm,
I
mhm,
actually want to help a million people?
mhm,
What would that require me to do? And that might be commitment to show up for a podcast or write a book or a blog. But it
mhm.
might be I need to start talking to people on podcasts like yours or
Yeah, I'm part of the
um,
mission.
exactly. You're helping me with that. Or I might need to get in conversations with people and talk to more people or be a coach. So there's a lot of what that I don't really know the answer how to help a million people, but what that's going to require me to do is explore things that I wouldn't normally do. You can see that's very different than just showing up and writing or recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I'm committed to that result, a million people, but I am not attached to it. So I'm not like stressed about it and like pulling my hair out, which I don't even have. Um, so I'm committed to it, but if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to, you know, beat myself up. So that's the
Mhm,
difference. But I'm still committed, even if this year I didn't actually hit my goals. That doesn't mean I'm just like, oh, forget it. It doesn't matter. I'm
mhm.
still committed. I keep showing up, trying to create that result. And I believe I probably will work on this goal for the rest of my life without
Love it.
maybe ever achieving it. Maybe I will. But I'm going
Wow.
to do my very best. I will give my entire being over to that goal. And we'll see how it goes. Like I'm committed to it,
Wow.
but I don't know for sure if it's going to happen.
So
I
beautiful.
One last thing to share. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but
Of course,
uh,
like you're the star. You can
okay,
talk as
great.
much
I
as
get
you
to be
want.
the star. Um, so the other thing I'll say about that is that if you're committed to this result, but you don't know if it's going to happen, that's scary. We don't like to be committed to something where we don't know it's going to happen. So what people
Hmm.
usually do is commit to something where they already know they could do it. Like I know I could show up and write every day. That's easy because and
Hmm.
it's safe because you know you can do that. But
Hmm.
helping a million people, I have no idea if number one, if I can do it or how. And that's actually to me the thing that's more vulnerable and courageous is stepping into a goal without attachment, but still without knowing how to do it. So I'm committed to something, but I don't know how to do it. That means I have to learn some new stuff. I have to
Yeah.
shift the way that I show up. I have to like be willing to work with heartbreak and disappointment sometimes,
Yeah.
which, every day I face heartbreak and disappointment. And that means a willingness to show up and face things that I might otherwise want to avoid. So it's really
Wow.
interesting.
And in these moments when I think all of us can find these loops of maybe the ego or
Mm-hmm.
negativity or intrusive thoughts that, oh, is this
Mm.
really relevant? Is this really good? What do you do in these moments? Well, first of all, how do you like discover them that you're having them? And
Mm-hmm.
then what do you do? What are your anchors that ground you back? I know you
Mm.
meditate, but do you
Sure,
have
sure.
any other anchor?
That's a really good question. Thank you for asking. Your questions are awesome. I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really hard to those are usually actually from some kind of attachment,
Yeah.
right? And we all have attachment. So, I'm talking about trying to work with no attachment. What that requires is me to see where I am attached. It's not that I'm never going to have attachment and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
a Zen master and Buddha and just like fully free of attachment. Actually, working with letting go of attachment means noticing where you have it,
Yeah.
and every day I have attachment. And then I have
Wow.
to say, oh, it's there. That's where it is. And like, what would it be like to let go of that? How can I practice? So the way that you see it is, first of all, commit yourself to something. And the first place you'll notice attachment is attachment to not committing yourself to something. It's like, I don't want to commit to, I had someone who wrote to me about their book project. And they're like, I want to write this book. And so I'm just going to show up every day and write. And I'm like, oh, when do you want to finish it by? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if I want to commit to an actual outcome. I want to commit to the
Mm-hmm.
practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, that's totally cool. You can do it that way. But it might be more powerful to commit yourself to actually having a result. And so they said, okay, first draft is going to be done by August. That's a different kind of commitment. And you could see that they were resisting it. we resist having any kind of a commitment like that because we might fail.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you commit to that, let's say you commit to it, you can see right away, oh, I'm really scared that I'm going to fail at that, and so the attachment starts to come as like I need to like get it all done perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
or I need to quit and like get out of this. Whatever will show up is exactly where your attachment is. And so
Wow.
having that commitment helps us to see where the attachment is. Or
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I'm just avoiding writing. I'm not showing up for the writing sessions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you can see like, and then you're pulling your hair out, or you're, something, whatever you're doing. And what I'll say, one thing I want to say is that it's hard to see it. You asked like how you can tell that you have it. I think it really helps to have someone outside of you. So that would be a coach, a therapist. I have a coach and a Zen teacher, and so this week I'm meeting with my teacher, and she's gonna
Mm-hmm.
tell me where my attachment is. And my coach,
Okay.
I meet with him every 2 weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
he helps me to discover that myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it really helps to have someone outside of you. This is why we have Zen teachers. If you go into the Zen lineage, you don't do it on your own, because it's impossible. You can't see what you can't see, and we are invested in being blind to our own ego and our own
Mm-hmm.
attachment. And so you have to have someone outside of you saying, "Hey, here's something I can see that you might not be able to see, what I can notice." So once I see it with the help of them, or just noticing I'm just not showing up for my commitment, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm too attached and really getting perfectionist,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, then the way to work with that is to, first of all, to be with it. And I'll explain that for a second. So that's like being with it is just allowing yourself to notice the feeling in the body and keep your attention there, your presence with the feeling. So if I'm like attached, or
Mm-hmm.
anxious, I might
Mm-hmm.
feel it here in the chest. There's a
Mm-hmm.
tightness, and you just breathe, and you just like be with it, is just like allowing it to be there, not needing to push
Mm-hmm.
it away, and keeping your attention on it so you can just feel it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if you put your hand in like cold ice water,
Mm-hmm.
allowing yourself to feel the iciness and the coldness, and
Mm-hmm.
keep your attention on the cold hand. What does it feel
Mm-hmm.
like? So it's the same thing. Anxiety is just like, it's
Mm-hmm.
tightness, or it's like energy moving around, and just staying
Mm-hmm.
with that. So be with it. And when you be with it without that judgment is a really important one. You might have
Mm-hmm.
some judgment, and then just see if you can just accept the feeling,
Mm-hmm.
relax. So you just like relax with the feeling is probably my main instruction for myself. So just relax, just allow it to be
Wow.
there. And then once you can do that, it's just allowing it to be there and allowing yourself to experience it fully. And then once you've done that, you can actually be at choice. So you can choose another experience. It's not that that experience is
Mm-hmm.
bad. Like if you're anxious, it's not that that's bad, but it's also like, oh, is there something else that I would like to experience? So, for example, in this season, I'm talking about creation and I'm talking about love. You can experience both of those even when you have anxiety. So, I'm having anxiety about putting my work out there, and I can say,
Mm-hmm.
well, anxiety, yes, but I also, bigger than my anxiety is my love. And I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
I putting this out there because I love the world, or I love
Mm-hmm.
my kids, or I love, art. I'm putting it out there because this is an expression of my love. And
Yeah.
so that's an example. It doesn't have to be love. It could be play. It could be
Yeah.
adventure. It could be creativity. It could be curiosity. But it's a different experience than just the anxiety. So you can choose into something that feels more alive or
Mm-hmm.
expansive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only something we can choose into if we notice the current attachment and the current experience we're having, and we can be with that. Then we can choose into a whole new experience. Um, does that answer the question to give you?
Oof, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You talked
Okay.
about embodiment and connecting
Yeah.
with emotions. Thank you for this information because, yeah, I think
Mm.
attachment also comes in a form of anxiety, and sometimes
Mm.
I notice that on myself. Like I am
For
consuming
sure.
content, and I'm being inspired by other creators, but at some
Mm.
point, I start to feel like on the chest, not and like it's not inspiration anymore. Now it's jealousy,
Jealousy. Yeah.
or I feel I'm behind, or and then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, it's time to stop and go for a
Mm.
walk. Like stop
Mm.
scrolling. It's not inspiration anymore. Like you
Yeah.
consumed enough today. Like go out.
That's so good.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I immediately feel it in my body. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and one last note on what you just shared, because I love.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. So there's a inspiration is expansive. Love,
Mhm.
creativity. Those are all expansive. And then when we
Mhm.
get jealous or we feel
Mhm.
anxious or what's the other one I was going to say?
Shame.
Inadequacy,
Yeah.
shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are all like contracted, and neither one. It's not like expansive is good and contracted is bad, but it's
Mhm.
like breathing. We're going to be
Mhm.
expansive sometimes,
Mhm.
and we're going to be contracted sometimes. This is just a human experience. Oops, bumping into my
Mhm.
microphone. Uh,
Still expanding too much. That's good.
so I gotta change the yoga around the microphone. So there's contracted, and we can just notice like sometimes some days my heart is contracted, like I'm impacted by politics or
Yeah.
something that someone said to me or
Yeah.
something that I noticed when I was scrolling, or just afraid of putting my work out there, and we're contracted. And when we're contracted, it's not that we have to like force ourselves to be expanded. It's just that sometimes we can just allow ourselves to be contracted, and sometimes it helps to bring breath or go for a walk, get away from scrolling. Sometimes it helps to give ourselves love, just kind of be
Mhm.
gentle with ourselves, and eventually we will open. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can't force that. And sometimes just, giving yourself a hot bath or a hot cup of tea
Mhm.
can help it to open
Yeah.
faster. But it's
Mm.
not like it has to be open and expansive all the time. It's just that sometimes we're jealous. Sometimes we feel inadequate.
Yeah.
Sometimes, all of us, and we're afraid we're not going to make it. And that's where we get contracted. And it's just a noticing that we're contracted right now, not
Mhm.
needing to force it open, allowing it, just be gentle with it. Like if you had a little
Mhm.
kid who is scared and you can just give them a hug, they don't have to be not scared.
Mhm.
They could just be scared,
Yeah.
and you just give them a hug, and eventually they will not be scared, but it doesn't have to be right now. So that's the
Mhm.
idea I wanted to share, is contracted versus expansive is
Mhm.
just how we are. And sometimes you're going to do that all day long, in and out.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you'll
Yeah,
just
it's a
be contracted
practice.
all day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And do you think that meditation has helped you to be a clearer channel to
Mm,
I like to see ourselves as a channel that we bring some ideas from the cloud and we download, and they are downloaded through us. At least that's
yeah.
how I understand creation. And it helps me so much, even when it doesn't make sense or even when I'm
Mm,
ashamed of showing my work. It's like I'm having this idea and it's
mm,
my only commitment to make this happen, even if it doesn't make sense or even if it doesn't look good or it doesn't sound good. But I feel I'm the channel. I don't know how it's your experience with that, how you approach creation and meditation, if
yeah.
you see any correlation.
Absolutely. Yes. And I don't want to, if anyone's listening and they're not meditating, I don't want it to be like this should or a have to that you meditate.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but that said, I actually 100% agree with you, and I really love that idea of being a channel. That's such a
Hmm.
beautiful idea. Yeah, it's interesting. I've written a bunch of books. I'd make a lot of podcasts. I've written thousands of blog posts, and so I've created a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
And you might
And you
think,
still have
okay,
ideas.
well, sometimes, sometimes I have no ideas, but you might think, oh, so he's really good at creating, right? And he like knows how to create. And the interesting thing is, I still struggle with it, and I don't even know where it comes from. When you talk about like this being this channel, I think that's a really accurate um, idea or model of what it's like to create. Because if you ask the best like musicians, the best authors, the best artists, visual artists, we none of us know where our creations come from. We want to take credit, like I'm the author, but actually, who knows? Like it could be a bunch of stuff that you've read and consumed and learned over the years. It could come from your experience interacting with the world and other people. It could come from, who knows, God or the universe
Mm-hmm.
or, a thousand deities. I have no idea where it comes from. It could just be your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious, but the thing is we don't know. And so I think it's true is that we are a channel, and we have to, from wherever it's coming from, and we have to just, okay, we don't have to, but the way that I've noticed it works for me is the more relaxed and present and open and expanded that I am, the
Mm-hmm.
more that it just flows.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I wanted to write and I'm really expanded and relaxed
Mm-hmm.
and just present in the moment and just allowing stuff to come, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
in kind of in tune, and it just flows. But if I'm contracted and I'm like, I need to force myself to write right now, um, that doesn't work. And
Yeah.
so I can actually, I'm reliable to still put some words onto the page, but it's not any of my best work, and I'm just forcing it. It's like trying to like force something like through a closed channel, right? It's like everything is squeezed.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that meditation helps me with that is that it allows me to sit even when I'm closed, and eventually through sitting, it just opens. And when I sit, so I actually will, before writing or doing a podcast, I'll just sit and breathe and just like
Mm-hmm.
feel, am I closed or open right now? And if it's closed, I
Mm-hmm.
just let it be there until it opens a bit. And then once it's open, I let whatever happens, I just become a receiver. It just,
Yeah.
you know, the way I record if I do a solo podcast, I have a topic in mind, something that someone asked me about, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
have a script or a list of topics. And I just sit for a minute and I receive and I let myself sit open. Then I press record and then I just let it flow. And whatever comes out, comes
Wow.
out.
Okay.
And I don't even edit it. Well, there's probably I have an editor, but I don't personally say like, oh, this part is good, this part's bad. I just send it to my edit. I upload it, send it to my editor, and it'll eventually like be out there. But it was all just whatever showed up in that moment from that
Yeah.
topic.
I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah. Wow. That's
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, and when I mention meditation, yeah, as you said, it's not to just force others that that's the only way to create. It's just rather to have
sure.
a practice that helps you to remove mental clutter so you will have more clarity on your idea. So any practice that you want
Yeah,
to.
I got
Yeah.
that from you. Yeah, I understood that's your intention. I just wanted to make sure that was clear as I talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because sometimes we put more pressure on ourselves. Like I should be meditating and like not without thoughts, and then you get more anxious and like then
Yeah.
find your own way. Yeah.
Yeah, we add a lot of shoulds to ourselves, and
Yeah.
that actually contracts us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I think about minimalism when I'm in front of you. So I want to ask you about how do you embody minimalism or simplicity in your creative processes? Do you have
Mm.
anything maybe unusual that you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I um I like to, well, so first of all, minimalism is it's kind of an idea, right? A place to lean towards. And for
Hmm.
me, it's a contrast to the way that our society usually goes. It's like we're a maximalist, right? We want to
Yeah.
consume and buy a bunch of stuff and go to Target or Amazon and just
Mm.
more and more. I don't know what it's like in other countries, but I know in the US that's what it's like. And so we're
Yeah.
just more and more, and our lives become so full and
Yeah.
digitally too. So minimalism is a counterbalance to that. It's to say, hey, we actually need very little. We don't need a lot of that. And it's not an ideal, like we need everything needs to be perfectly empty and pure. And I think that becomes the attachment, is like it's this ideal, but it's more just like, oh, what if we didn't? What if we could let go of some of that, let go of some of the attachment, and realize we need very little to be happy. So that's kind of the idea of minimalism. And as you asked about creating, I think that's one thing. So here's an interesting one. So when I started the podcast last year, I was like, I don't know how to do a podcast. What equipment do
Mm-hmm.
I need? Like what
Mm-hmm.
platforms, all the things that you know by now. But I didn't know any of it. And I'm like, how do I reach an audience? And do I need to tag things? And all of these questions. So I hired someone, a consultant, to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me all of these answers and everything that I needed to do. And it was really helpful. But I also noticed that because I didn't know what I was doing, I wanted to get all of the answers and do all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I this is where I actually started scripting everything and planning the whole season and trying to be perfect. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
where the opposite of minimalism comes in, is when we step into the unknown and we don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to do something. This is the same thing when we travel, by the way. When we travel, it's like, I'm going to this place I don't know, and so I need to like pack everything. And what we're really doing isn't packing what we need, but packing our fears. And it's the same
Yes.
thing with the podcast project.
Yeah.
Is I was afraid of failing, and so I tried to do everything and have everything. And when I recognized that, I'm like, oh, I'm I'm afraid, and so I don't need to do all of this stuff. I'm like, what's the least that I would need to do to actually put this out there? And like I said,
Yeah.
it's start recording, have a microphone. I think that's a good thing to have a microphone, and just press record and show up and talk.
Exactly.
And so I was like, oh, that's actually a lot of fun for me. I get to like just talk about something that I'm really interested in,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's not scripted, it doesn't feel heavy, and so I just let myself just flow
Exactly.
with it. And that's the minimalist version of a podcast for me, is just press record, have a microphone, send it to my editor, and who, by the way, is my son. So he's a 27-year-old.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, video and audio editor. And so I sent it to him. He lives 2 minutes away. And so then I can go and knock on his door. Where's that podcast? But anyway, um, so yeah, I get to just send it to him, and then like that's the least amount that I could do. And it's actually
Yeah.
a lot of fun that way. So the minimalist version of
Yes.
a podcast is just so much more fun for me. And I try and do my writing the same way. And pretty much everything that I create is, what's the least that I could do that and the
Yeah.
most fun. It doesn't
I love it.
require a ton of equipment, a ton of software, a ton of process. And sometimes process is good. So I'm not saying no process,
Mm-hmm.
but I only
Mm-hmm.
do what is real, supports what I'm trying to I'm committed to creating, and what makes it like fun for me. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Wow. I love that, Leo. Thank you for sharing that, because I think actually perfectionism is one of the enemies of
Mm.
starting, start
Hmm.
creating. And that goes along with trying to maximize everything. It's like, but I haven't
Yeah.
started because I haven't found which is the best the best microphone, the best platform, the best, and you want the best of everything, and you don't
Of
start it like
course.
now.
The best. I'll say you can carry minimalism too far. My hair is one example of that. So, okay, that's my last hair joke. I won't make that joke anymore.
We have a
But
few minutes left. I don't know.
all right. Well, yeah. So minimalism, I think, is it's a good thing. It's just like I said, don't carry it too far. It's just that
Yeah.
can be an attachment as well.
Yeah. And I told you that I've checked your work, and I also checked what you offer. A retreat is
Hmm.
coming, but I also
Oh
like
yeah.
your offers are also very minimalist. So like
Ah.
you don't have 3,000 masterminds, two memberships. So like even in that, I can see
Hmm.
that you are living minimalist, like a minimalist business. Let's call it that way. How do you how do you keep yourself grounded when now there's the new trend of the new platform, and now it's TikTok, and now memberships are trendy, and now like you can
Yeah.
do a
Yeah.
lot. So how do you say like, okay, no, I'm gonna ground on this and it's working for me. Maybe I will do a retreat next year or two retreats this year. So how do you choose that without falling in these like FOMO traps?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I honestly sometimes do fall into those traps. So I will say I'm human like everybody else.
Of course. Yeah, yeah.
Um, and this is why, again, this is why I have a coach and a Zen teacher. They help me. Just having these
Hmm.
conversations with them helps me to catch it.
Hmm.
And so that helps me to notice like, oh, I'm trying to do all of this stuff because of FOMO or some kind of fear, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I try and catch it when I start getting into it. And then the other thing that I do is, in terms of grounding myself, is I will. So I like to think of it almost like a purpose meditation,
Mhm.
but it's, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
What is it that I'm feeling called to do? And this is the
Yeah.
bigger question of helping a million people. It's a medium question of I want to launch this podcast
Yeah.
because, there's some reason that why I want to do it. And then it's a
Mhm.
smaller purpose of what am I called to do today or right now?
Yeah.
In this moment, what am I
Yeah.
called to do? And so after this, we're done talking, I'm going to sit. And it doesn't have to be sitting for an hour. It could be sit for 10 seconds or half a minute or
Mhm.
2 minutes. But I'll just sit and I'll just be like, what am I called to do next? And I'll look at my to-do list.
Mm.
I have a to-do list because this morning I sat and like, what am I called to do today?
Mhm.
On yesterday, I said, what am I called to do this week?
Mhm.
Every month I do the same thing. And the way that it works is I'll just sit and breathe, and
Mhm.
um, I will lead myself. We're all leaders. We're leading others. We're leading in relationship with each other and in business, and we're leading a community of people or our customers or our clients, and we're leading ourselves. So the way I lead myself is notice when I'm closed, notice when I'm feeling fear, FOMO, or anxiousness,
Mhm.
and I ground it by breath and sitting and just feeling plugged into the earth. And then it eventually, my whatever closedness or anxiety or fear I had like expands.
Mhm.
And once I have openness, then I ask the question, what am I feeling called to do? What is the
Mhm.
world calling me to do? And it's like right
Mhm.
now I'm feeling called to write a blog post or record a
Mhm.
podcast. And then I go and do that. And
Mhm.
that's again the channel. It only comes when I'm open.
Yeah.
And sometimes I am not feeling open, and it's just not going to come. And so I say, okay, I don't know. And so I'm going to go out and sit in nature. And so purpose meditation will be I'm out in nature and I'm going to sit there. And sometimes I need longer, like, sitting out in nature for half an hour doesn't work. Sometimes I need
Okay.
to go out and be out there for a few days. And so,
Okay. Wow.
not always like this, maybe once a year, but you need to go out
Yeah.
and find what the world is calling you to do, and that's what's
Mhm.
your purpose. And if you don't know what
Mhm.
your purpose is, my recommendation is go out and sit in nature for as long as it takes. It doesn't matter if it's a day,
Mhm.
5 days, a month. You might need a tent, but you go out and sit in nature until that purpose comes to you. And then once you have that, just keep refining it by sitting in purpose meditation daily, weekly, like, as long as you need to know, to be clear on your purpose. And if you're not clear on your purpose, it just means you need to sit and sit in silence, sit in stillness, sit in nature, until you are clear.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
through this, I've been doing this thousands of times now.
Yeah.
I'm more and more clear on my
Yeah.
purpose,
Yeah.
and that gives me clarity and groundedness.
Do you bring a journal with you or somewhere to write when you are in the woods? Yeah. Oh, okay.
It really helps to have a journal, and what you don't want to be doing. Let's see. Okay. For journaling, there's two purposes for bringing a journal out into nature. For this, the first one is, again, you become a channel. I had this one teacher who was a rabbi. So I'm not Jewish, but he was a rabbi, and he said in his tradition, handed down, thousands of years, they go out into the desert and they talk to God.
Wow.
And they just talk to God, and then they listen. And when you talk to God, you're just like, my spouse is doing this, and my kids are doing this, and my boss is doing this, and you just like, and I don't know what this is, and then you just talk and talk and talk until you just spill it all out into the desert, and then you ask a question. So in this case, it would be like, what's my purpose? And then you
Mhm.
listen to God. And again, you don't have to believe in God. So you could listen to spirit, you could listen to the universe, you could listen to nature, you could listen to yourself. It doesn't matter, but you just sit and you receive, and you become that channel that you talked about. And when you listen, it's a really good thing just to get that journal and write down everything that you get that gets transmitted, or as much as you can, right? So you're scribbling furiously because God is talking to you, or the universe,
Mhm.
and you just, ooh, this is a transmission I'm getting. And it's like, I am being called to help children who are, afraid of not being enough, or whatever it is. So you start
Yeah.
writing this down, and I want to
Yeah.
bring play into their life, and I want to do this, and jump ropes, whatever it is that comes to you. And then, so that'll be the first purpose, is write down whatever you hear from God, the universe, your
Yeah.
subconscious. Then the second one is, when you are sitting, sometimes you'll get a transmission like that. It's like, I'm being called to do this. So write that down.
Mhm.
But other
Mhm.
times it's like, I need to do my laundry. I need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
I
yeah.
need to
Not
answer
every
that
time is
email.
that
Yeah.
spiritual.
And so I think a good use of a journal is just write down those things. Those are things that your mind will get fixated on. But if you write them down, your mind will be like, okay, I'll get to those later. Like, I need to call Martha. So write that down, right?
Yeah,
I need
it's
to,
so good to
yeah,
write it down. Yeah,
write it down. And so you'll have this list of stuff that you can get to later. But right
yeah,
now, you're not attending to those questions. You're attending to the question of purpose.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, journal's really
Wow,
good.
wow, I love that.
Hmm.
I'm conscious about the time, but
Sure.
I want to leave a last space for you if you have anything else you want to share with the audience, especially thinking about someone who might be watching or listening, who
Hmm.
is like, yeah, I want to put my work out into the world. I'm a little bit afraid, fearful, and I discovered that someone else is writing about a similar topic. So why to
Uh,
bother? Why should I put my thing, or why should I even keep on creating if that was
yeah.
created already? What would you
Yeah.
tell to that person?
So those are fears, right? And everyone has them. So any creator, I don't care if it's you or me or whoever, the Dalai Lama writing a book, right? All of us
Yeah.
have fears. And so our fears are going to voice themselves like that.
Yeah.
There's too many people talking about this already, or someone else has already said this better than me, and they're more of an expert than me, or they have a, they're more beautiful than me, or whatever it is that we might be afraid of. And write those down. Those are your fears. And just be like, okay, that's great. I'm going to write this down, write those fears
Hmm.
down. You can give voice to them. But what you want to do as you write those down, have a list. And those are just your fears. They're going
Yeah.
to come up again and again.
Yeah.
For me, um, a common one is no one cares about this, or they're going to think you're full of yourself, is another one that I have. They're just my fears voicing themselves.
Hmm.
And what the purpose of these phrases, like, someone has already written about this, and
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if I do this, or no one's going to care,
Hmm.
I'll get no response, or they're going to
Hmm.
criticize me. The purpose of these is to protect us,
Yeah.
to keep us from taking action that might be dangerous, right? So the action that we're afraid of is putting our work out there into the world and exposing ourselves, risking
Yeah.
something. And so, you know, we don't have to risk anything. You don't have to put any work out there and expose yourself. You can stay safe. There's no need to do anything different. But the thing that you want most in the world, the thing you care most about, is out there in the exposed part, in the unknown, where you don't know how things are going to turn out. And so safety is one thing, but I would ask you to ask yourself, to whoever is listening, what is more important than your safety? What is more important than this fear? What do you care more about? Is it your kids? Is it helping someone? Is it putting your heart out into the world, expressing
Hmm.
something about yourself and letting it be seen? Is that more important than whatever you're afraid of risking, which is probably like being criticized and being hurt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to risk those things. And so once you recognize, yes, there's something I'm committed to that's greater than these fears, it's like, okay, do I want to expose myself? And then you have to commit yourself to taking this action, even when these fears are there. And honestly, the fears are protecting you in ways that maybe you needed when you were 6 years old or 11 years old, but you have grown beyond that. And the fears still think you're that, like scared little kid, but you're not. You're stronger than that. You don't need those protections anymore. And they're still going to try and protect you. That's what our brain tries to do, is protect us from danger. And we don't need that. So know that these are trying to help you, trying to protect you, but they're not needed anymore. You can expose yourself and you can trust yourself to handle whatever happens on the other side of that. Criticism, people not caring, whatever it is that you're afraid of, you could do that. And it might hurt a little bit, it might be disappointing, it might be scary, but you can do that. And the other side of that is a place where you can love yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Wow, this is so beautiful. I will keep
Mm.
listening this episode.
All right.
Thank you so much, Leo.
Uh,
Thank you for opening, for the micro meditation. I feel we also meditated some seconds in this episode.
for
It's so
sure.
beautiful. Um, I just want to open the space if you want to share something else about your upcoming retreat or
Mm,
your blog or whatever
sure.
you have, your projects, your creative projects.
Yeah. The retreat, I don't know if this podcast will be out in time, but I'm holding it in April in London. And the thing I want to share about that is, even if you never decide to come to the retreat, the purpose of the retreat is slowing down, but not just like living a slower life, which is a beautiful thing,
Mhm.
but slowing down in the moment so that we can be with those fears that we talked about, be with our resistance, be with the contraction that we've talked about, all of the things we talked about. If we could slow down and be with that, which is something we don't want to be with, we want to move out into distraction and avoidance and all of the, YouTube and Netflix and all of
Mhm.
those, Instagram. So we are moving away from whatever it is that's showing up for us. And the purpose of the retreat is slowing down and being with that, and then learning that we can trust ourselves in that. And some beautiful, like very rich, powerful training. And so I encourage people, come to the retreat, work with me in person. If not,
Mm.
come and check out my Fearless Living Academy, where we do practices like this, or work with me one-on-one as a coach if you're interested in that. But even if you don't, come read the blog, because this is stuff that I really care about and love to
Mhm.
help people with.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Leo, for your presence and for your
Thank you.
teachings. I'm grateful that we connected. Thanks.
Me too. Yeah, this has been beautiful. Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening and for watching.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.